Welcome. It is the lunch hour, noon, and hopefully many of you are sitting down to a beverage or something to eat and sitting back and waiting to enjoy this last keynote presentation with us today. For those of you who've been with us since 8 a.m., thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We're very excited. We started off our day listening to Rodolfo Gutierrez with ACED talking about from a statistical standpoint, the impact that he's having in his organization in Minneapolis, and really giving us a breath of how important the Latino community is to the rest of America. To continue the theme, we listened for the past 3 hours to real Latino stories. We heard what's happening in Latino households and how they have dealt with the past 18 months. We have also heard from Latino business owners sharing their triumphs, their tribulations, and I personally was very enthused about their commitment to staying the course and hanging in there. Thank goodness for entrepreneurs and their optimism and their really can-do attitudes. And these 3 Latino entrepreneurs were dynamos. The last hour, we heard from college students and what they're seeing in their Latino classmates, what some of their challenges were, and how their plans may have changed. So right now, to close out our day with us, we have something wonderful in store for you, I think. The picture that you see up on screen hopefully is familiar to you, because that we sent out the link of that report, which came out recently in May of 2021, and it is put together by the Latino Donor Collaborative, and it is titled "The Latino Community Stepping Up for America." And so hopefully many of you got a chance to peek at that report, but the report highlights the critical role that Latino workers have played during this pandemic, but also the vital contributions, necessary contributions that Latinos will have during the recovery. Latinos have served on the front lines as essential workers, from fields in the Central Valley to the corridors of our hospitals. They have really stepped up for all Americans over these past 18 months. And it's not the first time that has happened. Latinos have driven the recovery from recession dating back to the recession of 1948 and 49. We're very happy that the Latino Donor Collaborative has put together this report to really illustrate the impact that Latinos have here. What is our true economic impact? To share with us this report, we have Ana Valdez with us this afternoon. She has a marketing degree from El Tecnológico de Monterrey and a master's in international relations from Instituto Ortega y Gasset in Madrid. Ana has held many prestigious marketing and communication roles, including with Nielsen in Mexico City, Banamex, which is now Citibank, the United Nations Commission for Human Rights, and with the Clinton administration. She is the co-founder of 2 companies, Valdez Productions Incorporated and the 650 Company. And throughout her entire career, she has maintained a dedication to nonprofits and contributing to the greater good, especially the Latino community. She is the executive director of the Latino Donor Collaborative, whose mission it is to frame the U.S. Latino story as an integral part of the American story, to advance an accurate portrayal and perception of the Latino community in America, and to be the voice for the economic impact that Latinos make to American society. It is the perfect setting for Ana to use her years of marketing and communication experience to help our greater good. Please welcome Ana Valdez to our meeting.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me and for including me. I'm so excited. I hope this is only the first one of many where the Latino Donor Collaborative and the Hispanic Collaborative work together. So thanks for having me. And thanks everybody for being here. Again, I'm really excited. I'm going to talk a little tiny bit about the organization, a little bit about, well, about me. You already introduced me. Thank you so much. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the organization, and then I'm going to tell you what we do and the numbers that we create. Because I really hope that through this presentation, again, being the first one that we work together, you adopt our numbers and you become ambassadors of it. Please use them. The more people download our reports and the more people use this, the more we achieve our mission. And you'll see what I mean when I finish the presentation. I'm going to share my screen and you'll see me in the corner of, but I will basically talk based on what the presentation is. And FYI, I will send it to Nancy and Andrea can distribute it after, so that you have it with you. Again, all these numbers are in our website, but I think the presentation helps to just summarize some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them. So with that, I am now sharing my my screen, and let me know if you can see it. Hopefully you can. Okay, good. So Nancy, just confirm if that's okay with you, that you can see my presentation. Well, I guess I'm not getting a no, so that
we can see it. We can see it.
Thank you so much. I just sometimes, you know, I just don't want to err in the technological side of things. So, so again, my name is Ana Valdez, and I'm the executive president of the organization. And as I said, I'm really excited, not only because I know what you guys are doing and it's so important. And Milwaukee is such a, it was one of the many cities that we were watching with the elections, not because we are focused on politics, but because politics, I think, tells us, where are we actually making strides? Where are we actually going to change the, you know, the picture of everything? And you guys are already doing it. But so it's exciting for me. I'm just a fan. So another reason why I was really excited is that you are one of the people in our club, I feel. You guys are data driven, and this approach is what we've taken from the very beginning. So I'm really excited, and I'm happy to bring all these numbers. And again, through that data-driven approach, we also are focused on improving Hispanic vitality and prosperity, building economic power, and civic participation. I believe that you guys are more active in those three areas. We are very, very focused on data, and then we work with our friends to use our data to create each one of these changes. But we are mostly focused on what we do, which is data. And I want to tell you that I know that the approach of these conversations usually is how to support and empower our community. But our approach, and after you see these numbers, you'll see in this presentation that the title actually of this kind of presentations, data driven, should be more how to future-proof the United States. And when you know the numbers, you will realize the kind of return of our investment that we do and why all Americans should be invested in empower our community. Let's start with the organizations. So we are a nonprofit, of course, founded in 2010 by the top Latino business leaders in the country. Why was it founded? Because when Arizona started proposing the first racial profiling law, as you remember, SB 70, we were terrified. We were really concerned about how can we allow people to just target us because of the way we look or the way we speak. And these leaders were extremely concerned, and they decided to get together and to fund an organization that would always remain independent to change that. How can we change that? How can we change the perception that we are actually easy targets? And so we created also the Latino Data Collaborative, which is a part of our organization that creates the data. It's a little bit of a think tank that we have within the Latino Donor Collaborative. And the Latino Data Collaborative is actually our most important asset, which is the numbers. It's actually also our uniqueness. There was nobody at that time doing it was the only, actually we still are the only national organization that works specifically to create economic data. And that is nothing to be proud of. I wish there were more, but yeah, we are the only ones. Sorry. I'm actually trying to create a slideshow so that it's easier for you. Hold on just a sec. Just give me a tiny break, sorry. Okay, good. Okay, continuing. Sorry for that interruption. I was hoping that it could be better, but anyway, our targets. So the good news about this is that we're a small organization, but we have several assets, and one of them is not only that we have a very, very engaged and, thank God, powerful board, but also that they have a lot of connections. And so being small, but and not having resources to create huge campaigns nationwide, but having the connections to actually engage CEOs and all the opinion influencers in the country, we decided to make them our target. Why? Because they can change things. And so our targets are CEOs, national leaders in the political side, in the civil rights side, in the media side. And those are the people that we actually share this information directly with, although they go on to share it with everybody else. And that's actually part of our strategy. So basically, as I said, how we do it, we do research and we communicate this research to decision makers that can actually use it to create change. And the change we want, of course, is access to Latinos, not only as employees, but also as part of their target demo. We want Latinos to be included in advertising, in media content. We want them to be included in strategies of political campaigns, of philanthropy, everywhere. And so we're very proud. We've had a bunch of great successes. Again, I've talked about our board. Our board is engaged not only with their financial capacity, but also with their time and their relationships and with their ideas, which is really great. We get a lot of great partners to work with in communications and in strategy, et cetera, from our board who connect us with their big providers. So for example, our strategic plan is done by BCG, and our campaigns, our communication campaigns are made by J.W. Thompson, because these people are clients of our board members and they do pro bono things for us. The secret of our sauce is who creates this information, the data. So our research partners include Stanford University, UCLA, Cal Lutheran, Nielsen, Hill and Knowlton, Morgan Stanley, Time Warner. Why? Because the numbers that you will see in this presentation are so outrageous that if we didn't have these names behind us, people wouldn't believe us. When you talk about 85% of all the new businesses formed in the United States in the last 10 years being founded by Latinos, people won't be. I remember the first meeting we had with the New York Times, the head of the New York Times, and he was reading the numbers. And thank God we were with somebody that had a lot of credibility from his community, but he was reading the numbers and he literally closed it and said, if Stanford was not saying this, and if you didn't bring it personally, I wouldn't believe these numbers. And so these names like NERA and Time Warner and Viacom give us the credibility so that people know that there is a huge market waiting for them and they have missed it. It is a blind spot on their side, not data made up by us. I'm sharing all this because I hope it works for you guys too, for the Hispanic Collaborative because it has worked for us. We are lucky. Our numbers have had stories constantly in all this, media, economic media venues. We're lucky that we are in most platforms and that people cover our reports constantly. Also, we have one-on-one meetings with all the CEOs that are listed here and many more. And we act a lot like free consultants rather than a traditional nonprofit. But we have a nonprofit ultimate goal, which is access for Latinos and to Latinos and from Latinos. How do we get there? How do we tell the CEO of Disney, you need to meet with us? And how do we get him to give us 2 hours? Personal, right? Like just in a meeting. Well, we promise them several things. We first show them our numbers, like the most basic ones, who we are demographically. And then we promise to give them some hints as to who we are, how to engage Latino consumers, how to engage a Latino workforce, and more importantly, the pipeline, how to engage Latino students. Because when you see these numbers, you'll see that whoever is not prepared for this explosion of our community, they are not prepared to survive. So let's start with who are Latinos. Latinos are these kids that you see in front of you, of course. You all have them. I have them, right, at my house. I mean, not now. I have actually college kids, but I've had these kids in my home, right? We come in all colors. We come in all shapes. We come in all nationalities. Well, even heritage, because most of us are Americans. But more importantly, we're focused. Our community is extremely young. All these young people are Latinos. And there are more Latinos than any other young people in this country. And I don't have time to tell you more about the demographics, but I will tell you that the average age of a Latino in the United States is 28 years old, when the average age of a non-Latino in the United States is 42 years old. So you can see that the majority of our communities looks like this, right? They are young. Let's go to the demographic numbers. And this is important. Hold on just a second. My battery is about to die. So let's see these numbers. And I'll tell you some historic numbers after. Today, and these are numbers from 2015, but today, non-Hispanic whites are 59%. Hispanics are 20%. African Americans are 13%, Asians are 6%, and other races are 2%. That's a big change from 2002, as you can see in this graphic, but more importantly, from 1970. In 1970, 88% of all Americans were white. It was a very monochromatic population, which was very much easier to address. When you have only one segment that in the Pareto chart is the 90% of it, it's easy to market, right? And it's easy to create access. The world in America has become much more complicated. As you can see in the third column, by 2020, Latinos and we don't have yet the results of the census, but what we've heard is that Latinos will be 20% of the population. Today, 1 out of 5 Americans are Latinos. And again, the segment that is going down with this growth is obviously the white segment. African Americans have remained more or less the same. Asians have grown from 4% to 6%, and they continue. And the projections say that they will continue to grow, but they will continue to grow to 8%. On the other hand, projections for Latinos are that by 2060, Latinos will be 31%, 40% of all Gen Zs in America. So you see how if you don't have a strategy for Latinos, you're really not in great shape. And the good news is this: most of that growth is coming from US-born Latinos. Therefore, most of that growth comes in English-speaking segments. Again, I mentioned that Gen Zs are 25%. And if you can see, we are 25% of all Gen Zs today, and only 10%, 11% of baby boomers. Again, there goes the youth of the community. And 30% of Gen Alphas, which is incredible. Kids less than 10 years old in this country, 1 out of every 3 are Latinos. Can you imagine what that means for consumer products companies, from media companies, for voting, for political campaigns? I mean, this is huge. So again, as I said, 90% of this youth is actually being born in America. I'm going to give you an example. And again, I'm sorry I don't have the numbers of Milwaukee, but I promise you that the next time I will. In New York, in the state of New York, I'm not talking cities, I'm talking state. In the state of New York and in the state of California, 1 of every 2 kids born today is Latino. Those 2 states drive the economy. And today, 1 out of 2 is Latino. Just think what that means in 10, 20, 25 years, when these kids will be integrated in the workforce. The same for every city that is the top 10 DMAs. The growth for Latinos is always, much bigger. In 2 of the cities, Los Angeles and Chicago, the growth of whites is negative. So the trend continues. All the numbers say the same. And as you know, low birth rate means no economic growth, and higher birth rate means economic growth. Workforce, and I don't have to tell you because most of you are business people, workforce is the engine for growth. US Latinos account for 80% of the growth in the American workforce. 80%. It is just outrageous, right? So the more Latinos have good jobs, the more they spend. One of the things that we do at the Latino Donor Collaborative is create every 6 months a national business leaders private convenings. And we invite only CEOs and C-suite executives and our board and our members. And we have a conversation private. We follow Chatham House rules, so there's no media. And everything that is said in the room cannot be quoted outside. You can talk about the ideas, but you cannot talk about who said them. And so in these convenings, you hear incredible things. Sometimes there are quotes that are worth promoting in this case. And we ask for permission and we get it. But one of the greatest moments of one of our latest convenings was Steve Forbes, of course, from Forbes magazine, saying that, and he started this phrase by saying, "I love my friend Trump. And I agree with a lot of things that he says. But the one thing that he's completely wrong is about immigration. And the one thing he's mostly wrong, and I mean, absolutely wrong, is about Latinos. Because Latinos are actually the cavalry coming to America's rescue. And we are, right? I mean, even Trump supporters know this. And that's why it's so important that we start spreading this information, because it's in the benefit for everybody. Business is always, a win-win premise, or it doesn't work. And in this case, Latinos are a win-win premise. Include Latinos and you will grow. So we're a lot. I already talked about how much we're growing in numbers, right? Demographically, we're really kings and queens. But are we productive? And again, I have so many more numbers here, but I don't have enough time to share them, but I will, and hopefully I will soon. Are we productive? Yes, we are. We are incredibly productive. In 2013, the US Latino media household income began sharply rising. And remember that we were affected by that 2008 crisis the most, right? Many of our Latino friends lost their homes, they lost their jobs, and there was a huge issue with what was happening with our community. But by 2013, because we were driving the growth after all that horrible crisis, by 2013, we were already growing in income. By 16, our high school dropout hit the newest low. And then and not only that, we were also enrolling in college. And then by 2016, we found this incredible number that from Stanford actually, and we funded that report too, that 86% of all the new businesses came from us. And then of course, our Latino GDP reported in 2018 that we were producing $2.6 trillion of the GDP. If you put this number in context, $2.6 trillion, if we were an economy, if Latinos in America were an economy by themselves, we would be the 8th largest GDP in the world. These numbers are outrageous, right? And they are. And that's why we need such important partners in research, because these numbers are outrageous. Not only we would be the 8th largest GDP in the world, but we would be the world's fastest top 10 growing GDPs we would be the world's fastest growing in the top 10 economies in the world. And that also, of course, reflects in the consumption, right? So this is the projection. The projection is that not only we are today the 8th largest economy, but by 2024, if nothing changed, things will change. Actually, we will be more empowered. But if nothing changed, with the rhythm that we have today, by 2024, we will be the 6th largest economy in the world, within the United States. Just pause here a little bit. We are driving the growth of this country. There's no doubt about it. Without Latinos, this country would not be able to keep its leadership. And this is a premise that has applied since 2015. So what are we doing with that? So are we to remain, where we are? Our immigrants will remain. Are we to remain as farm workers? And we're needed. And I hope that we have a lot of people available for farm working, but are they remaining there? Are their kids remaining there? No, they're not. We also find that Hispanic undergraduate enrollment showed the largest increase in the last years. 3.1% of them are enrolling. Out of every other demo, we are the ones that are growing the most. Whites are actually decreasing in percentage, blacks too, and obviously we're not happy about it, but we're absolutely proud that we Hispanics are still growing, together with Asians too, but we have the biggest percentage of growth. So when you talk about what are we doing with that incredible growth that we are experiencing demographically, well, we're actually promoting it to our productivity. We're actually bringing it also to our education, to the American education scores. And we're also entrepreneurs. As I said before, we are the ones that are founding the most businesses. Today, if you compare US Latinos, US African Americans, and US Asian Americans, we here in this line that I'm pointing out, we own more than 5 million businesses. African Americans own 2.5 and Asian Americans own 1.9. All this to tell you, we're not only bringing education, focus on education. We know our families are focused on education, but we're also bringing our creativity, our risk-taking, and our entrepreneurship, which is so important for the economy again. This leads to consumption, right? I wish I had more time, but I want to share this graphic. In the case of consumer products, we lead the growth in everything. I don't have the chart here with me, but in the automobile business, there are brands that depend 100% on us for growth. The growth of Honda comes 100% from Latinos. The growth, 93% of the growth of Toyota comes from Latinos. The growth of luxury brands is also starting to come from Latinos big time. So, and here are some other examples. An average US household consumes 5% more on apparel than the rest of America. 25% more on apparel of children, of course, right? We are 30% of of kids that are less than 10 years old. Of course, we lead apparel for children. We lead footwear. We consume more in active sportwear, and of course in food and meat and detergents and household cleaning too. These are official numbers. So again, not numbers from the LDC. These are just official numbers. And when you talk about how productive and how good we are for the economy, I always want to throw this number too, because we're also great for the culture. And not only we bring our fabulous food, which we all know has crossovered long ago, and now our music, which of course we know has crossovered, most recently, but we also bring American, what are considered American values, but are actually our values from centuries, right? We created a poll a while ago, and we asked, do you agree with this statements? And this poll was targeting all Americans, but it was divided by community. So with the premise of most people can get ahead if they're willing to work hard, 66% of Latinos agreed. 58% of non-Latinos agreed. The belief in our community is that we are here to give a better life to our kids, so they're going to live very well. And so with the premise of my children's standard of living will surpass mine, 52%, 15% more than the others, which, were 36%, believe that their children will surpass. And I don't have to tell you this, but we all have examples. We live in California, so we have a backyard, and we're really lucky to have a beautiful, grass backyard. And we have a person that has come to our house every week to cut it. And this person is an undocumented person. He has 4 kids. The 4 kids are dreamers. They were accepted to UCLA. The 4 of them are there. And his older one already has a job offer from Disney Marketing. These are the sons of the people that are coming here. And this is just an example of an immigrant, but this applies to all Latinos in this country. So Nancy talked at the beginning about a report of the coronavirus, of how Latinos have stepped up for America during coronavirus. And all these are indexes in this page that I'm showing on how Latinos were affected. We all know about it, right? I mean, we were 48% of all essential workers. That's the only thing we need to know to realize how affected we were, not only being infected, but also dying. And of course, losing jobs and, closing businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these numbers talk about it, but the numbers that we love from our report are these, which are that Latinos stepped up and saved the day providing services needed during the crisis. Not only, I live in California, but every time for a while, I didn't leave the house, but every time I left it, the very few times that I left it, who was fixing the roads? Who was packing my groceries? Who was in the cashier in the supermarket? Who was coming when my plumbing needed some help? Latinos were there all along. They continued working. And even though they suffered the highest numbers of infection, and some of them even the highest unemployment numbers, they found new things to do by creating new businesses, by finding new jobs. And by March 21, exactly 1 year after the coronavirus crisis started, Hispanic males had the largest share of the working age population employed in the United States. So what I mean is, yes, we suffered unemployment. Yes, our businesses were closed. But 1 year later, Hispanic males were the largest share of everybody working in the United States. Percentage-wise, of course. Not only that, but Latinos during 2020 grew at a record pace as home buying. They had a rising of more than 700,000 homes being bought by Latinos just in 2020. They were the segment that bought the most homes during 2020. And my report is very long. I am running out of time, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of the data that we have in that report, which shows how we're already pulling this country up from the crisis. We're already doing what we did in 2018, which is that we drove the recovery. So when I ask, or when I asked at the beginning of my presentation, who are Latinos, right? When the CEOs that work with us, when the resource allocators that work with us ask who are Latinos, Latinos are the new mainstream economy in America, period. There's no way out of that one. We are the new mainstream consumers. We are the new mainstream students. We are the new mainstream productivity driven, population. We are the people that you should be looking for. Do you see now why this presentation should be called How to Future-Proof the United States? Because this is the way. Latinos are the investment, the return of our investment that should be the future-proof of the United States. My presentation goes much longer, and I get so excited about it, so I apologize. I talk a lot in each one of these in each one of these graphics, but I want to leave you with a thought. I want to show you 3 more graphics. One is a game that we do with our CEOs that is called Let's Play Perception versus Reality. And the perception is that America keeps being this white country and it's amazing. And again, nothing against whites. We adore whites. Some of us, I'm not, but some people are married to white. It's nothing personal with any other community. It's just the wrong perception versus the reality, right? So corporate America only invests 13% of marketing dollars in multicultural. The reality is that 51% of all children under 9 are multicultural today. So this is the opportunity. Don't let false beliefs and preconceived ideas blindside you. If you don't use fact-based data, you will not be competitive. Your product will not grow anymore. How can you tap into this opportunity? These are some calls to action. There are many more, but these are some that I thought I would share with you guys with the Hispanic Collaborative. My first one, and the most important of all, is that people in the audience shift your own reasoning. Because our experience at the Latino Donor Collaborative is that when we get each one of these reports, we are shocked. We shouldn't. We shouldn't be shocked with these results. We should be used by now to the fact that we are driving the economy's growth. So my first recommendation to you is shift your own reasoning. What's good for Latinos is good for any company. It's good for America. Perception versus reality, remember. The second recommendation is speak out. You can literally help to fix this problem, this blind spot, by speaking out every time you can, not only professionally, which you should, but also when you watch a game of your son, a soccer game of your son, and you are with other non-Latino parents, share this information. Tell them, they'll be happily surprised, believe me. Third, demand metrics. Metrics are so important in everything that you do. Demand metrics. When people talk about diversity strategies, diversity hires, diversity, decision making, demand numbers on Latinos because it's the key. Fourth, develop a solid relationship and engagement with your Latino consumer. Even if you're Latino, sometimes we don't have that relationship. Communicate, market, advertise, create an authentic relation with this community, and this community will show up. Support human resource systems that recruit more Latinos, and of course, be Latino procurement or support Latino procurement when you can. This is the most important part. And remember this, show Latinos some love and Latinos will love you back. Because if you don't, somebody else will. Thank you so much. There's so much more to share, but I am honored to be with you guys. And again, as I said at the beginning, I hope this is not the last one.
Gracias, Ana. That was fantastic. We really appreciate you giving us a quick overview of what we can find in that report, and hopefully everybody on this, and we're going to continue to share this presentation out. We have recorded the full session today, so anybody can help view that. But hopefully they'll dig in and they'll understand a little bit more of that data. And so let me get this right. Are you saying that it's the equivalent of if America loves us, they better put a ring on us, right?
Exactly. Oh my God, Nancy, you said it so well. Absolutely. Jennifer Lopez said it first, and now you said it. That's good. No,
Yeah.
Beyonce said it, right? And then Jennifer Lopez, and then, yeah, absolutely.
So
You
we
said it
have
well.
we have a couple questions here that we want to hit, and I'm glad that you talked about asking for Latino questions, right, or Latino information. That is something that we certainly deal with here in Wisconsin and Milwaukee area, um, and we see this even on national trends of federal reports that will come out that won't pull out Latino data separately. And we see it in media happen as well. So, what can we do to encourage more disaggregation of data and sharing Latino numbers? You know, we're big believers that data gives us insight into solutions, and we can't create those solutions unless we understand the specific Latino data. What suggestions do you have for us to continue to push for that disaggregation of data?
Absolutely, Nancy. We're all going through it, right? We're actually creating a philanthropy report that talks about not about diversity philanthropy. It talks about diversity by community because the difference between the diversity is enormous. What we're using, so I'm going to give you two tips. One is that we're using our consumer numbers directly versus it. So what we're going to the CEOs and saying, you know, yes, I agree, diversity is important, but what about, but you have to see this through the marketing lens, right? Who is your consumer? Who's growing? Who are the kids? Who's the decision making? One of the numbers that I didn't share is that Latinas are the decision makers for most of the decisions, sometimes not only from their own households, but from other households. They're leaders of opinion because they're moms of young kids, and they have most of the young kids. So the marketing approach is for us extremely helpful. You know, changing the conversation, as I said at the beginning, from, and I'm going to be, you know, very crude here, but from charity to marketing win-win, right? This is not, I have a friend that Beatriz Acevedo constantly says, we're not your charity. You actually need us more than we need you. And so when you talk about the numbers of philanthropy, when you talk about diversity because it's the right thing to do, you should actually add the marketing part, because sometimes that diversity is not actually bringing you the growth. And so that's one. And the other one is the productivity number. The GDP report, I don't know, and I hope that you have heard about it in Milwaukee, but the GDP report has become a little bit of the Bible of a lot of the CEOs, because again, who's your workforce? Right? You can't produce anything, not even from ideas to products to building business, building hospitals. You can't do anything without workforce. And what we say every year in our Latino GDP report is we are the workforce that you need. I don't know if you know these numbers, and these are all our official numbers, right? I mean, Department of Labor. Before the coronavirus, there were 7 million jobs not filled. Now, after coronavirus, there are 9.3 million jobs not filled. The game for the next years will be workforce, workforce, workforce. You need to train that workforce. You need to have it available. And it's not only basic workforce. Yes, we need basic workforce, but it's technology, it's medicine, it's everywhere. And so those things, marketing and productivity, are the numbers that we constantly bring in to create that space for us in, diversity that doesn't include us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And you're right. A big part of what the Hispanic Collaborative does here is look at those numbers and understand what do we need to do to help outcomes for Latinos. And we have very high employment rates here. Our Latinos are working, but we also have very high poverty rates. And so we have a chart, we're happy to share it with you at some point, but we are trying to move Latinos from those, what are a lot of essential worker categories, as we now have a new coined phrase during the pandemic, and moving them into those positions that are more in demand and higher earnings trajectories over the long run. So I agree with you there.
Let me just add a third,
Yeah.
which I think is super important. And I'm preaching to the choir, but still we should speak out. One of the things that other communities that are extremely efficient at getting breaks is that they speak out and they're never afraid of it. And what we found in this 10 years is that first we were very careful. You know how we are. No, we want to be known by our results and, but now we're very, very outspoken and it has worked out really well for us. We feel that it doesn't, but it does.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this brings me to my second question, and probably last question that we have here, given the time frame. But if we look at the last recession from 2008, disparities between Latinos and whites, and actually between African Americans and whites, for that matter, grew during the recovery time frame of those last recessions, right? So the disparity gaps were made bigger. And the Hispanic Collaborative right now is advocating for more targeted funding, more control of funding to better leverage those stimulus and recovery dollars, not just to address the issues, but then how do we leverage those dollars to be in a better position for the community to leapfrog some of those disparities? And that's, Latinos are in the middle of it. They know what their communities need, right? And so that's why we're advocating for that. How would you help government think outside the box in how they apply recovery funding and be more open to greater control of funds and greater allocation of funds to better address needs in the Latino communities?
That's a great question. And I would love to share an example of us in California. And of course, it's a different situation, but it actually translated into a lot of success. So in 2015, we created a group of organizations that started being in touch with the governor. And it was a different governor, but we were lucky enough that it translated to the new governor. And we call it the Latino Task Force. And we began, the first year, was a little bit of a honorary role, if you may. We got together, we talked to the governor, we talked to his people, we created recommendations. The first year, we didn't really see those recommendations translated in the budget. But we kept doing it. And I got to tell you, this was one of the biggest successes of us in 2020, at the end of 2020. And now in 2021 again, the governor now depends on our recommendations. We get together literally every week. The 2 months before the budget, we get together every week with his people, sometimes with him, and we bring up this return of our investment that we create constantly. And I'm actually going to send it to you because I'm really, really proud. The budget of the governor, the one that he announced in May, has all of our recommendations included. Not only because he needs to, because of course he needs our vote, but more importantly, because they were business recommendations. They were recommendations that were great for the state. So it was very easy for him to pass, right? They were, and of course, I'm very aware that the population in California is completely different than in Milwaukee, but we found that, we showed up, right? For 5 years, we've been showing up. We show up with business premises that are not only affirmative action, which are necessary, but it's a win-win situation. For us, it's always win-win. And the budget this year was really a joy. I mean, we couldn't celebrate happier. It was a big success. He actually, in his main speech, he mentioned our group, and we had secured, we hope, we knock on wood, that we secured a place in his decision-making table constantly. And again, this is one of the many options, but I just wanted to share this because it does work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that and congratulations on getting that through the budget. I think that's great. And I think it's also great for us here in Wisconsin. You know, we had a speaker this morning from Minnesota, and he talked about Latinos being 5% of the population in Minnesota. We have similar numbers here in Wisconsin, and I think it's always good for us to be reminded of the numbers in California, of the numbers in New York, and really of the overall numbers that you shared with us today that really paint the picture of Latinos in the United States. And we're a part of that here in Wisconsin as well.
Exactly, Nancy, because you guys are only, maybe we're 10 years ahead of you or 5 years or I don't know how many, but you're getting there. And that's why it's so important for us that you get these numbers. And just FYI, we were also invited. So our information, our data now is also part of the U.S. Congress Economic Joint Council, which provides all the data for decision making. And we're speaking in front of the Federal Reserve Bank in October. So these numbers that we're talking national should be applying. Your leaders in Milwaukee should know that this is applying. Whoever jumps in earlier is going to get the best of the market. Building relationship with your community there is an assured success for the next years to come, if not already for today.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. We really appreciate you being with us today. We appreciate that the Latino Donor Collaborative exists and the work that you're doing there. We look forward to sharing a lot of data with each other, right? And leveraging your data and helping share the story behind the work then that's happening here in Wisconsin and how we in Wisconsin can help Latinos all over the US as well. So we really appreciate you being with us today. This last 50 minutes or so has been fantastic. So thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you so much, all of you guys.
I am going to hand this back to Andrea Barrutia, the head of our community engagement at Hispanic Collaborative, to close us out.
Thank you, Nancy. And again, we thank you all for being here, and we thank our special guests, Ana Valdez, the executive president of the Latino Donor Collaborative, as well as Rodolfo Gutierrez from ACER. We also want to say thank you to our moderators, Sandra Dempsey, Laura Hernandez, and Alberto Maldonado, as well as all of the panelists who participated in the important discussions about how Latinos in our community, you know, whether they be business owners, college students, and so forth, how they've been affected and how they've experienced COVID-19. Next, I want to talk about the upcoming events that we have for the Hispanic Collaborative. First off, everyone should be aware that there is Hispanic Heritage Month. We at the Hispanic Collaborative are partnering with others to make sure that this is the biggest Hispanic Heritage Month that Milwaukee has ever seen. So please save the date for September 15th through October 15th and be ready for hearing more about the activities to come. We also have a planning committee, and if you would be interested in joining these efforts to put on Hispanic Heritage Month, we would love your involvement, and you can contact me for more information. We are excited to announce the second annual Urbano Conference will be taking place on September 16th. The Urbano Conference will be at Marquette University, and we're hosting it in partnership with the Marquette University Center for Real Estate, as well as NAIOP Wisconsin. And we're excited to announce that AmFam will be the presenting sponsor. Urbano aims to increase the number of Hispanic real estate projects, Hispanic developers, Hispanic investors, and Hispanic professionals in commercial real estate. It will explore commercial real estate career pathways and present Hispanic areas of the city that are prime for commercial real estate development. This year, our theme is Urbano, Building Milwaukee Latino Strong. Also, we ask that you save the date for the next community working group meeting on Thursday, October 14th. And last, but certainly not least, we are very excited to announce that we are approaching a milestone of having 100 Latino-owned businesses on Mercado MKE, the marketplace for Latino-owned businesses in Milwaukee. And this milestone has been due, we're about to approach 100 businesses, and that's because of a lot of hard work teamwork and the efforts of our Mercado MKE operations lead and account coordinator, Laura Hernandez. So we want to give a big special thank you to her. We ask that you please check out mercadomke.com to support our local Latino businesses. And to make it even easier to shop, you can search Mercado MKE on your in the App Store and download the app to your phone. Once you have it downloaded, please open it up, start checking out all of the great restaurants, retail shops, and services that Mercado MKE has on it. And we ask you to, again, support Latino and shop Latino and start making your purchases. Thank you again to all for being here and for joining us at today's community working group meeting. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.